Afternoon and welcome into Helping Seniors of Brevard. I'm John Harper, and we want to introduce to you the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard and the executive director. Here is none other than Kerry Fink.
Hey, John Harper, it's always good to be here on the radio every single Wednesday around lunchtime, 12 noon to 1 p.m. We gather around the radio for 90.3 FM, WEJF. And that just blasts up and down the Space Coast. Actually, you can hear it all the way over into Orlando, and we're just grateful for each and every listener that takes the time to join us for Helping Seniors Radio. Also want to welcome those of you who listen online at wejf.net and those of you that will catch this as a podcast later today. We have some really good information that we're going to cover today, so you're going to, once again, want to grab a pad and a paper, and let's really see what we can get into today. We have none other. It's always a privilege. First Monday of every month, we get to sit down and talk with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson of the William A. Johnson PA law firm. That's always an impressive kind of thing. How you doing today, Bill?
I am doing well, Kerry.
And your Fourth of July was good and enjoyable?
It was.
It was nice. It was a great day, and it's always fun to sit with you on the radio. You've been part of the Helping Seniors family going way back with Joe Steckler, back to the days when Joe was building Joe's Clubs in Brevard Alzheimer's before he retired from that. And then anybody that knows Joe doesn't retire. So Joe, 89, working on 90. We were trading emails this morning. He's active at it every single day, working. He's probably like one of the best friends of seniors in this entire county. But you guys go way back. And then, Bill, you've been helping us actually since the day Joe began this, which now we're like in year 12, moving on to year 13 of all this.
It's crazy how time flies.
Yeah, and we have so much information to share today. We thought, I was asking Bill, I said, what do you think is a great topic for us to cover? And he talked about this, and this is interesting because we are talking about this, the fact that things keep moving forward. And so we're going to talk a little bit about trends for seniors in this day and age. And I guess that's something, Bill, that you and Joe in particular probably see because you've been doing this an awful long time yourself. I mean, I met you when Joe first was getting Helping Seniors of Brevard organized, and you'd been already doing this for a long time even then.
Yeah, we have been doing it 30 years, Kerry.
So this is not your first rodeo.
No, it is not.
You know, I was laughing with Joe because, our big fundraiser, I walk in and I throw down a big stack of tickets, the Helping Seniors car raffle tickets. I say, Bill, your office, you've got the Helping Seniors raffle tickets. So if anybody comes in and says, hey, I want to support the work of Helping Seniors, I want to get my raffle ticket so I can maybe win a new car, but certainly have a great time out at Mark Pylock's American Muscle Car Museum Saturday, October 7th. And you said, yes, I've got those in the office. But I was thinking when I was talking to Joe, sort of to this same topic, he was saying, Kerry, he said, me and AJ, we go back into the mid-90s, he said, because we started to raise money through the car raffles when he was trying to build the Joe's Club. And, of course, now this is our 7th annual car raffle for the Helping Seniors. It's hard to imagine that this much time is just flying by.
Yes, it certainly is. And it's amazing to see that we've held it together this long.
It's good and it's an important service for seniors, both in terms of what we try to do as a Little Florida nonprofit. Joe established this to educate, inform, and connect seniors to resources that will make a difference in their lives. And so ever since Joe established Helping Seniors, we've been operating the Senior Information Helpline, which is that free call. So this is a number you want to jot down if you haven't already committed it to memory. But the phone number is area code 321, right here on the Space Coast. I thought it was funny that that they have a sense of humor. We live in the Space Coast, so they give us a countdown, area code 321. But the number is 321-473-7770. That's our helpline. And you reach Nancy Deerdorf, who is our operations director. And Bill, like you, she's been helping Joe since, going back to Brevard Alzheimer's days too.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then, but you've been doing this well. I know you do, you're very generous with your time. You do a lot of work. For example, over at, you do a lot of seminars and things that are very valuable for seniors over at One Senior Place. I hope you're going to come over and do some now that we have the Senior Resource Center of Brevard established. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But you really are, you were the county's very first and board certified elder law attorney, which just shows how seriously you take your craft.
Well, I wasn't the first, and
Oh.
for quite a long time I was the only.
Okay.
And now there are two of us.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Well, but board certified means that you've taken steps to go well beyond, any attorney, it's already tough, I guess, to pass the bar and just get through that. But then to take all those extra steps and get yourself, you just want to show that you're like, taking this seriously and you want to be the best that you can at it.
Exactly. It requires that you practice in a whole bunch of different areas. You have to take a test, pass a peer review. So, and then you have to take almost 3 times as much continuing education as the average attorney.
Yeah, and then I know you're also like this county's, you're like a go-to resource. Every time I turn around, people are asking you about legislative updates, everything from the Space Coast Florida Guardianship Association, and you're always called on because you keep your thumb on everything that's going on in Tallahassee too. In fact, people are always asking you, you've come on the radio, we've done legislative updates when the sessions, so you really do take all this elder law stuff seriously.
I'm also the chair-elect of the elder law section of the bar, so that's how I know all this stuff is being active in the section.
Oh my goodness! Well, just while the folks have their pen and paper handy, if they wanted to, you're going to get a lot of good information out of it. Because what my point about setting this up was, Bill is somebody who's watched senior and the trends in senior living for a long, long time. So if somebody just has a question, they want to get in touch, they want to find out about a free seminar, anything that may be coming up that's relevant for them, what's the number they reach your office at?
321-253-1667.
And as we talked about, Bill has your car raffle tickets, but we'll talk about that later. Let's get right into this question about senior trends. We've gone from, at least as I've paid attention to this, it seems like we used to do a lot with honor flights and things like that, and we were honoring the World War II veterans. And so it seems like we have moved a little bit from where we were, even in the time I've been involved with it, which is now, 12, 13 years, to where we are today. What would you kind of characterize? I guess now we're moving into the boomers are becoming seniors.
Correct. I don't see that many World War II veterans, regrettably,
Right.
anymore. I get quite a few Korean War and Vietnam War veterans now. The World War II ones are few and far between, sadly. But that's one change that's come is that demographic.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, God saw fit to make a lot more seniors, and He keeps making more. So it's not like we're going to run out of them anytime soon as that demographic wave rolls through.
I remember because back in corporate life and John Harper, who's like, he's been executive vice president. He's another guy that goes way back with Joe back into the Alzheimer's days. But he's been like the voice of radio here in Melbourne, Brevard County for years and years. We've talked about him being the longest running radio show host, and Joe probably second, only right after him because Joe has hosted this radio show for so many years. But the point I was going to get to, in our corporate life, we worked with senior radio. We had a radio network called The Music of Your Life, and I remember quoting statistics to New York City ad agencies. And Bill, this was literally 20 years ago, almost 25 years ago. And at that time, the statistics were somebody was going to turn 50 at the rate of 1 every 8 seconds back in those days. And so today, if you just move us forward, that means folks are still turning, now I guess you would say 65 or 70, but it's happening at that rate. So to your point, we're getting more and more seniors. And fortunately, we live in a county that does recognize the fact that I think we use the statistic 1 in 4 is over 65. And whether you like it or not, AARP is going to send you a card and call you a senior at age 50. So that's 1 in 2 of us here in Brevard County. So there are a lot of us.
That is true. There are quite a few. We are a very big retirement destination.
Yeah, I was really surprised. We talk about this so often when you and I specifically get into conversations where we talk about getting people to make sure, we call it getting your ducks in a row. Joe has called it making an aging plan. The point is make sure that your paperwork that you're trying to work with as a senior or as a person who loves and cares for a senior is the right paperwork, because we've had so many conversations on the way, Bill, where people walk into your office and maybe they did it themselves or tried to do it online, and now there's a serious situation. The paperwork just is not going to work, and there's no opportunity for a do-over. But we've talked about that. So many people are moving into Florida that this is just like a boom town with all of it.
It is, especially out in my neck of the woods around Vieira.
Yeah.
It's just growing by leaps and bounds, as is the traffic. But yeah, there are thousands upon thousands of people moving in.
So we've already talked about, so there's a shift in terms of veterans. They've been coming out of, maybe we don't get to see many because we just don't have so many left, World War II vets, but we're seeing Korean vets, we're seeing Vietnam vets, and there's a lot of benefits that could be available to them and their family to help them age if they know where they are and how to get them. But then also we have all the people moving in, so that makes a whole different, I guess, dynamic. But what else do you see as trends going on with seniors?
Well, I think when you have all these people moving in and you see the real estate prices go up,
Oh, yeah.
and then you see the numbers of seniors we have, you run right smack face into a housing crunch.
Yeah, you know, that I thank you for bringing that up, because that has become so serious for us. That's something we've really seen in the Helping Seniors nonprofit. Again, Joe established the Helping Seniors helpline back in when we first started, which was 2011. And we used to get calls. People say, "What do you get calls about?" And we would say, "We get legal, we get medical, we get transportation, we get financial questions, we get things like that." Housing really was not ever on the radar. We would occasionally get a call, somebody saying, "Well, you know, what housing? Is there housing? What can I do?" But it was few and far between. Last year, we took, I think it was over 5,400 calls that were served on the Senior Information Helpline. And I think Nancy told me like 60% of those are about the housing. And it's really, as you know, Bill, has really become a crisis because as a homeowner, you know, I'm always thrilled. I can go to Zillow and go, "Wow, look how much our house is worth now." You know, that just, it makes you feel good until it's time to pay the taxes or the insurance on it. But at the same time, at least you feel like, well, this is good. The flip side, though, is if you're a renter, you're really getting pushed out because so many people are cashing out. They're taking those big profits, or even if they're hanging on to it, what's happening with insurance and taxes are just so high that we're hearing stories every single day from seniors who are literally becoming homeless because this is such a big challenge for us here.
Right. You know, as the landlords pass those costs on to the tenants.
Yeah, of course.
And if you're living on a fixed income and trying to meet those new rents, it gets, you know, very hard, especially if your only means of income is Social Security.
You know, that's an important point. I sit with a group called the Brevard Commission on Aging, and we have this conversation that's really driven to the top of the front there. It's the organization that is supposed to be able to have ear with the Brevard County commissioners, and we need to be able to do actually a little better about all that. But the point of what I wanted to bring up was, we talk about this every month, and we said, you know, there's really a difference between a younger person who's maybe facing homelessness and a senior person who's facing homelessness, because oftentimes the programs that are geared to help younger people deal with housing homelessness, a lot of times it has to do with like, well, if we can help get your employment situation straightened out, maybe there's some kind of a problem with addiction or something else that's going on there. If we can get that straightened out, you're going to be on a good track, and we can get you into good housing, and you're going to be able to earn more, and you're going to be able to work to make a better future for yourself. And that's, you know, if you will, that's kind of the American way. But the flip side of this is when you're a senior and you've done this your whole life, and now all of a sudden you're confronted with the challenges of senior housing and your rent going up. It's not like, you know, you can just go, well, I'll just work overtime or I'll get a second job. You're just kind of seemingly stuck.
And that's correct. Is you know, can't turn on a switch and just have more money. So
Right. So,
yeah.
so I mean, this is a real challenge, and we've been trying to do some things that we can as a small organization to make a difference. First of all, we have a small grant from the county where we're able to try to work on a couple of like situations to try to help make people a little bit more housing stable. And then one of the things, and I'm glad you brought this up, was I wanted to talk about this for a minute, if it's okay with you. We're doing a Palm Bay renters workshop. This is with the help of the city of Palm Bay through their Palm Bay federal CDBG funds to make this possible. But it's basically a Renters of Palm Bay, Florida housing workshop. Now, there's no magic answers in here, but there is excellent information. And having, Bill, as an elder law attorney, having the right information can make all the difference in the world in the situation. And so this is actually happening a week from Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., Saturday, July 15th. We're actually partnering with our friends at the Brevard Hispanic Center, which is just located over here on Babcock Street here in Palm Bay. And our moderator is a lady whose name is Vinnie Richardson. She's the executive director, senior housing counselor with Christian Housing Ministry. And she herself has been doing work with developing and implementing HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development housing programs, for over 3 decades. She is one of only 3,500 professionals granted this elite designation of being a HUD professional housing counselor. And so we're really excited. Nancy's going to be there. I'm going to be there. We were talking about they're actually sending over an attorney to speak who is familiar with the Florida, I think it's called the Florida eviction. The point of this is, Bill, that we want to help folks in Palm Bay know their rights as renters, because all too often a property gets sold, they get a notice in the mail, Nancy gets the call, they don't know where they stand legally, what's possible, what's not, and there are most definitely some things, at least some hoops, that a landlord does have to jump through to make sure that they're moving in the right direction legally correctly. And so that's what this whole seminar is attempting to do, is to get this information in the hands of not only actually the renters themselves, but to be honest, if you're an ethical landlord, you also want to do this by the book, and whatever you need to do with your property, you want to do it correctly. And that information is in this same seminar, Bill.
Well, that's very good that we're getting the word out about that, because the statistics on senior homelessness are going crazy. In fact, some of the numbers are doubling year over year.
It really is incredible, because when I look at the volume of the calls that Nancy is confronting every single day, and these are not easy calls. I mean, what do you say to a 78-year-old whose rent was for years, they've lived in the same place for 15, 18 years and been paying, $700, $800 a month. And then all of a sudden, the new owner, the landlord says, okay, well, we're going to renew you, but it's going to be $1,400. So you would say, well, that's easy enough if I can go get a second job, or, if I have a big savings account or something like that. But for so many of these, they are literally waiting for that Social Security check to arrive. And those are the people we hear from.
Correct. And they don't have that money to pay.
Yeah, so when Nancy confronts these calls, there's it's really tough, because there's not a simple solution for them, right? She's resorted to, and it's one of the ways we can get things done. She'll end up anecdotally putting people together. So, well, I know somebody who has a room to rent. It's almost like back in college days, you had to roommate because you didn't have enough cash to do it on your own.
And most people don't realize that we do have low-income senior housing in Brevard. However, the waiting lists are months, if not years.
It's so funny, because that's one of the first things that Nancy counsels people on when they call in. They say, are you on the list? And they say, well, no, because they told me it'd be like 3 years. And Nancy always says, get on the list. You never know what's going to happen. You can always turn it down if they call you. You've got a better thing worked out, but at least get yourself on the list. And that's kind of, Bill, going with that whole get your ducks in a row, make your aging plan kind of deal. At least get on the list. And that's another solution. But I think part of it also, what they're trying to do here through this renters workshop, and we're grateful to the city of Palm Bay for stepping up and helping us put this on, but we're going to do this actually several times. But the first one is coming up Saturday, July 15th. If you're interested in the information, it is free. You have to qualify because, again, it's coming from Palm Bay City funds, so you do have to be a Palm Bay resident. We hope to be able to open this up a little bit more broadly, but if you are interested in this, it's Saturday, July 15th, 9 a.m. to 12 noon. It's being held at the Brevard Hispanic Center right here, conveniently in Palm Bay, here on Babcock Street. And we're partnering up with Javier Molinares, who is, as many of us know, the publisher of Al Dia Today, who also carries Joe Steckler's articles in the magazine every month. So he has a real heart and a passion for seniors. In fact, he was telling me he's caring for his 85-year-old mom, so he gets exactly everything that we're after here. So this session is going to be three hours. We have there's an attorney who's coming in to speak. Specifically, the agenda on this is pretty interesting. Like I was mentioning, first of all, you're going to hear from Vinnie Richardson, who's a HUD certified counselor. Our own Nancy Deerdorf is going to be there and share some of the things that she tries to do to help people when they call in. But then there's a whole program called the Florida Eviction Program, which is designed to make sure that you as a renter know your rights, and that if you're on the other side of it, a landlord, you also understand what you're allowed to do and what you can't do. And so if you're interested in this, please give Nancy a call, 321-473-7770. She'll give you all the information, 321-473-7770. But you're right, Bill, this whole senior housing thing is yet another part of a challenge that I don't know that we all thought enough ahead about to see what's coming.
I agree with you. And then, one of the other things is a lot of people don't have any other source of funds as well. We've talked about income, but most folks out there haven't put away enough for retirement.
Right.
And so we're beginning to see that as well, because most companies nowadays don't offer pensions anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's up to you to put the money in your 401k or IRA, and a lot of people haven't put enough money away.
I'm sure we're not doing that. And I was thinking I was going to bring that up, and I'm glad you did, because I remember some of the early TV shows and radio shows that you did together with Joe, and you were talking about that. You said, listen, what's happening is pensions are not, everybody used to work and get a pension, but it's not really the lay of the land anymore for a lot of people. And so this is another big dynamic. So everybody has to really be a little bit more careful. I was going to mention one other thing. Do you think it seems like families have changed a little bit over the years too. Like, in the older days, you would look after mom or dad or uncle or whatever.
Well, remember in the olden days, that's when your mother used to be home.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, both parents are out
Everybody's working. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So you get sandwich generation and everything. So we're talking with board certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. We're going to continue the conversation about senior trends in living and everything else on the second half of Helping Seniors, coming up next.
Hey, the start off of that music means the second half of Helping Seniors of Brevard is ready to get underway. I'm John Harper, and let's bring back here into our microphones the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard and the executive director of the organization as well. Here's Kerry Fink.
Hey, thank you, John Harper. It's always great to be back on the radio every Wednesday, 12 noon to 1 p.m., 90.3 FM, WEJF, online at WEJF.net. And hello to those of you who are continuing the journey with us via podcast. We so appreciate it. And thank you for sharing and telling. And, find us on Facebook, like and share that. Tell other people good information is found there. If you're a Twitterer, if that's the right word, you can find us. Helping Seniors is there. LinkedIn, we're there. Instagram, we're there. HelpingSeniorsOfBrevard.org, we're there. What we try to do is be wherever seniors and their families are looking for good information. We've been having a great conversation in the first half of the show that we're going to continue with none other than longtime friend, board certified. Is it 30 plus years? Is that correct? Did I say that right?
Well, I've been board certified 19.
No, but I mean serving here in this county.
I opened my law firm in 1994. So
Wow.
29.
Wow.
But I've been a lawyer since 1991.
So again, we were talking about board certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson of the law firm William A. Johnson. You're the guy who puts together all the great senior information. I always point people at the Boomer Guide because you publish a thing that is so important for seniors and their families to get, and you stick it into the center of that. I think you also have it on your website, floridaelderlaw.net, but it is a brilliant resource because so many people are running up on aging for the first time, and they need some help with this. Now, in the old days, you called it the Orange Book, but what do you call it now?
We still call it the Orange Book, but it's the Florida Long-Term Care Nursing Home Answer Book.
Now, that is a deep and long title, but I have to tell you, Bill, when I read it the first time years ago, I thought I need to read this because I need to get an education about this stuff. And it was very helpful. But what was surprising to me is that it was very non-technical. It was very easy to read, and it wasn't filled with a lot of acronyms and things that we all get lost in. But it was very helpful to help someone who's new to this get an understanding of who pays for what, what's available, what can you do, what can you not do, because that's something we're going to talk about. We've been talking about senior trends in this show.
Correct. And as everybody who's listening to us probably knows, healthcare costs rise faster than inflation.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
A good chunk faster. So I think as we sit here today, if we were retired, our Social Security check, one half of that will go to medical expenses.
Oh, my goodness.
On average, one
Yeah.
half.
Wow.
So if that's your only source of income,
You're in trouble.
You're already starting out half behind.
Right. And then when you think about it, like we were talking in the first half, we were talking about some of the trends. We were talking about the fact that vets, have shifted. The focus on vets has shifted from folks who maybe served in World War II and possibly Korea to now it's the Korean War. It's really a Vietnam War, and maybe even to some extent the stuff we were doing over in Afghanistan.
The war on terror.
Yeah, all that, is now factoring in. So we talked about that. We talked about the fact that just Florida is a booming state for seniors who are moving in, so they really have to get familiar with how it works here in Florida, particularly with their legal paperwork and things like that, because things that they may have assumed just happened up north. The paperwork doesn't always work the same way, which is one of the reasons you got to check all that stuff out.
Well, again, Florida is one of the largest growing states. More seniors continue to keep moving here. We don't have any income tax. We don't have an estate tax. So that makes it very attractive to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we will continue to see Florida grow. And we'll be adding more and more people here. And, so you can expect that to increase.
Yeah, and even too, I was thinking as you were mentioning the advantages of Florida that is causing the influx. Another thing, because we've talked about this on the various programs that we've done together, is Florida also has some pretty good homestead exemption laws. So when you settle that your home is going to be here, you get some advantages too.
Yeah, it gets you get some caps on your property taxes. You get some deductions off the assessed value of your house, and also your house is exempt from creditors' claims as well.
Yeah, this is why we talk so much. And first of all the shows that we've done with Bill Johnson, whether they're TV shows, they're radio shows, whether it's columns that he's contributed in to Senior Scene magazine, these are all available online, helpingseniors@brevard.org. You can find them on our YouTube channel, Helping Seniors of Brevard, our Facebook.
And the things we're talking about are trends we're seeing in Brevard County, but these are also national trends.
Yeah.
I mean, people are moving into a variety of places. I just talked to somebody from Colorado and said they were just getting inundated with people leaving California to get away from wildfires. And of course, that sent their property values soaring. And if you're on a low income, you can't afford to live in town anymore. You'd have to live out of town,
Yeah.
which is maybe not so bad if you're a senior, but if you're working, like a caregiver, now you've got a big commute ahead of you every day.
Yeah, that's the point too. You're right. It's a demographic shift. We talked about that too. It's just the number of seniors that we are seeing is just exploding because they call it the age wave. Years ago, there was a guy Ken Dykewall who wrote a book called The Age Wave, and he called it the Silver Tsunami and all that. And here we are. So we've been talking about that in general, but we were talking during the break. There's another section of this that is so important. If you've been around helping seniors any amount of time, our president and founder, Joe Steckler, talks about an aging plan, which we often euphemistically call getting your ducks in a row, meaning don't let stuff just happen to you and so that you're a victim or worse yet, you may have thought you made the right move and you made a bad move and now it's really going to cost you because your paperwork wasn't right and all those different things. But the point I wanted to get at in talking about this is I think a lot of us move around with the conception that, Medicare just pays for everything as I get older. And Bill, we've done whole shows on this, but that's another fact that we've got to get people to understand about aging today. If we're talking about senior trends, is you've got to think about how you're going to pay for this stuff.
And Medicare, just so everybody knows, does not pay for long-term care.
Right.
I mean, it'll pay for you to have rehab at a nursing home, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So if you need somebody to come into your house to help you out or go to assisted living or even a nursing home, you're not going to be able to rely on Medicare for that.
Right.
And the costs are getting just mind-boggling. I mean, there are nursing homes here in Brevard County that are over $13,000 a month.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why you actually spend quite a bit of time when you do because I know you do what we were talking about this. Bill will often do sessions over, for example, at one senior place, trying to get information in the hands of seniors and their families so they can make good decisions. And we're just talking about, we're going to be doing this also now in our own office, the Senior Resource Center Brevard, where we're able to host some workshops and things. We actually have a few of those coming up. We're just getting rolling with that. I'll tell you about that before the end of the show. But the point that I wanted to get at, Bill, was, that's probably one of the reasons why you'll talk to people about things like VA aid and attendance, or you'll talk with them about things like Medicaid planning, because there are certain resources that may be available to you out there, but you got to know that they're there, and you have to set yourself up correctly to take advantage of that.
And as we've talked about, most of the time I have to do the planning, it's in full crisis mode. Somebody's had a stroke or broken a hip or something like that, and we're in full crisis mode. Whereas if we have time on our side, it's much easier.
Yeah, and that's really the point. That's why Joe has always talked aging plan. We talk getting your ducks in a row because, at the point of crisis, first of all, under the best of scenarios, even if financial resources aren't the issue, you're in a stressed out mode, and that's a terrible time to make decisions.
Well, who's going to take care of you? I mean, if you don't have the money to pay for caregivers or private care, which can run sometimes $10,000 a month in your house, who's going to take care of you? And a lot of times we think it's going to fall on our kids. And as you and me were talking, most kids, they're married and both of them work.
Yeah, sandwich generation, right? You're trying to raise your kids, and now you're trying to find the right path for mom and dad, et cetera, too.
Right, and so subsequently they are starting to track, or been tracking for a while now, how much this impacts our economy when somebody's got to quit a job and take care of mom or dad.
Wow.
And how much is that caregiving that they're doing for free actually worth? Yeah. And it's in the billions of dollars for the United States because there are so many people who are doing that, taking care of people in their homes. And on the flip side, we even have seniors taking care of grandkids.
Yeah,
that's become a thing. With this drug epidemic and things like that sometimes the grandkids are now getting placed with the grandparents to get raised. And I couldn't imagine at this point in my life raising an infant, when you're supposed to be looking to your golden years.
Yeah, it's a complicated time. And Bill, yet there's one other theme that fits what we're talking about, senior trends, and I wanted to ask you about this one too, is I used to quote this back in the day because when we were in the corporate world, we would go see advertising agencies and they would say, your radio network, you're just talking with old people. We get them anyway, and we used to use the statistic because they would devalue anyone over 50, and they would talk about the value of, quote, what they called the money demo, which was adults 25-54, and we would say in 1900, if you turned 50, statistically you were dead because life expectancy wasn't that long back in those days. Now, this was the case because I remember quoting the statistic multiple times. So we're talking about like the year 2000, Bill, that if you turned 67 in 2000, you were likely to have another 17 years of life expectancy. And at that time, 85 plus was the fastest growing demographic percentage wise, because before you just didn't have 85 plus. Now,
Correct.
when I talk to people in assisted living, they say it's quite common to have people who are over 100. So isn't that part of this whole trend too, that people are just living longer?
People are living longer, and of course, then they're outliving their money,
Yeah.
which is another problem. So, and then the later years are where we incur most of our huge medical expenses as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Joe has always talked about a thing he calls elements of care. And what he means by that is get the appropriate level of help for the stage that you're in so that you know that you are prepared, that it may be more that's needed later on than it is at the outset, but manage that effectively. And Bill, that's something that, again, here we go back to planning makes a difference.
I call that the continuity of care.
Okay, but it's the same
Yeah,
idea, right?
You're on a continuum. Yeah.
Right. So that early on, like I know folks like who are connected to helping seniors, like Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors, that's what they call companion home care. And it's basically just somebody to start to help you around. And then as people, they may need more care as they go along, but you're buying what you need for the stage that you're in.
Which may help delay you from moving down the continuum as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Thinking you can't afford it and not asking for help may put you in a much more precarious position than getting a little help.
Yeah. I know in conversations with Jennifer when she's been on the radio, she talks about that. She said oftentimes it's good that they come in because it helps maybe a reluctant or maybe even a kind of a proud person. I like to do stuff on my own. Just get used to having some help in the house, and it sort of eases that shift into, well, there could come a time when you're going to need more than just this.
And the nice thing about her company is everybody's around the same age.
Yeah, that's true. She hires seniors to help seniors. But Bill, I was going to say, but this is really why the work that you guys do in the law office, through, not only through the seminars, but I mean actually where you roll up your sleeves and you help a family get things in order ahead of time, you're really helping them maximize their financial return on investment, because they're just going to pay a very kind of like a small number now, but it could save them thousands, if not tens of thousands, if they had done this. It's like false economy. Oh, I did this because I saw an ad on TV, but maybe they didn't know how to answer the questions right, or maybe it wasn't geared correctly for what's going on in Florida. And you've had to, like you said, you help people in crisis mode, but I always see you get a smile when you get a chance to help somebody early on get it right.
Correct. And as long as they have the paperwork done and have given some thought about what happens if I have a long-term care event, usually they're much more better prepared for when that event happens.
Well, it's just that you're thinking about it. I often use the expression, we get a hurricane plan. It does not mean you want a hurricane to hit. You just want to know, like, okay, if they tell me Cat 5 is coming our way, this is what we're going to do next. And that's kind of what Joe has always meant about the aging plan. You want to know what steps you might take. And sitting down and getting that kind of ducks in a row really could be not only financially wise, but it probably helps you de-stress a little bit in the middle of those very, very stressful moments.
Kind of like if you live in the South and you don't have air conditioning, now you might be thinking about getting air conditioning because the whole world's on fire.
Yeah, that's it.
That kind of thing.
That's it. And yet the things that you really, when we're talking about that long-term that long-term care book that you do. And it's, again, you can pick up a copy. You can just go to the website, right? I mean, it's
Right,
available.
you can download it right off the website.
Yeah, floridaelderlaw.net. And then again, you do a lot of these seminars. I think they publish a list of the ones that you do over at One Senior Place. That's in the back. You can find it in the Senior Scene magazine, right?
Correct. It's right in the back of Senior Scene this month.
Yeah, and so those are free, right? I mean, you do not those
are free.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to get involved in some of that, or they have questions, how do they reach your office?
They can call us at 321-253-1667.
And again, I really would suggest take a look at floridaelderlaw.net if you have access to internet, because that is just a well-written, kind of a primer on all this stuff. So a lot of the things that we've been talking about, you would get that, you'd read that, and then when you went to the seminar, you'd really be kind of able to sit in the front row and raise your hands and go, okay, I read about this, what, and that kind of stuff, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
The other thing I've noticed with the seniors is I just don't think we're prepared. I don't think we're prepared as far as healthcare facilities go for senior living options. We're getting in the thick of it right now, and I think we're going to have a lot of hiccups.
Yeah, Joe recently, I think it was last month, in Hometown News, published an article called "Don't Be an Ostrich," and that's because you think, well, I'll just put this off. I'll worry about this tomorrow. But Bill, so many times we sat down and we've talked about scenarios that might have cost a few $100s to deal with if it was set up ahead of time, but then because somebody just put it off, and a crisis happened, now there is no solution except a very, very expensive one.
And remember, with the numbers of people we're talking about, you may have a crisis, but I may be dealing with 15 other people who have a crisis.
Yeah.
And so don't assume that when your crisis hits that you're just going to be able to walk in a lawyer's office.
Wow, that's another good point. Well, Bill,
or a doctor's office or a hospital, or
that's something that COVID should have taught us, right? Because for a while when COVID was really and they were all figuring it out, and they would tell us, well, you only go to the hospital if this or this, because the hospitals were overloaded at that point.
They are.
Yeah.
And they still are. I mean, the hospital up by me, their emergency room's usually packed.
Wow. Well, it's an incredible thing. Well, we've been talking with Bill Johnson, board-certified elder law attorney. Again, I want to encourage you to take advantage of that long-term care guide that Bill publishes and faithfully updates every single year. Like I said, if you can find a Boomer guide, it's always in there, but you can get it also download floridaelderlaw.net, or probably, I'm sure, if somebody comes to one of the
or they stop
seminars
in the office, we can give them one.
Yeah, and they can also get their Helping Seniors car raffle tickets, too, he said, making another plug for our fundraiser. So with that, Bill, I want to mention a couple of events that are coming up. So if you grab a pencil, jot these things down. This month, if you picked up your copy of the July Senior Scene magazine, you'll know our center section this month is really about your medical and wellness checklist. So we've got some great speakers. We got Tammy Lieberg, who is a nurse practitioner who has a company called Practitioners in Motion. Jital Patel with Coastal Occupational Therapy is going to be there. And also Nancy Colwell, who's a licensed insurance agent with Humana Care Plus, is going to be on site for this. So that is coming up Friday. It's going to be a Friday morning session at Zon Beachside. I think it's 10 a.m. And they're also going to repeat it later in this month at Buena Vida Estates. So you can call Nancy for details, or you can find all about it at helpingseniors.brevard.org. We talked in the first half of the show also about the Renters of Palm Bay, Florida Housing Workshop that is scheduled 9 to noon Saturday, July 15th. This is a great opportunity if you live in Palm Bay, because it's free and it's great HUD counseling certified information. And I got to tell you, Vinnie Richardson, who is the lady that's going to be moderating this, not only is she an expert in renters laws and things like that, and helping make sure you know what your rights are, but she really enjoys helping seniors organize things and knows about programs that may be available through some avenues for even financing houses and things like that, because that's part of her expertise as a HUD counselor. So you definitely want to call Nancy and get information about that, especially if you're here in Palm Bay, because this is a program that is put together by the city of Palm Bay and the CDBG funds that they have access to. So Nancy can be reached 321-473-7770. And then also, Bill, we're talking about the Helping Seniors Car Raffle. That is coming up Saturday, October 7th, at the American Muscle Car Museum. That is a big deal to be there. And you got to get your tickets, be in it to win it. When you get your ticket, 1 for $25, 5 for $100 donation. It does 3 things for you. It supports the work of Helping Seniors, allows us to keep going. Number 2, it could give you a brand new car, your choice. And you could take a Dodge Challenger, Chevy Camaro, a Mazda Miata, a Kia Sportage, or even a Mitsubishi Outlander, because this year AJ Hires, who's a longtime friend of Joe's, has helped Joe raise money with Cars Through Charities going back into the mid-90s. Those are the choices you get to pick. Last year, Gail McGinnis, our local winner from Brevard County, she wanted the Camaro. Bill, do you have you figured out 2023 which car you like?
I think I'm going with the Camaro.
They say this
I'm
could be the
switching it
last.
up.
This could be the last year for the Camaros. What they're trying to tell us.
That's why.
Okay, so you got to get a ticket, be in it to win it. And the third benefit you get when you get your ticket is that you're invited on the night of the drawing to the American Muscle Car Museum. You know, Bill, I was just talking with Bill Antonetz, who organized a lot of the car shows. He said, you know, Mark Pylock is now over 400 cars. So even if you were there last year, he's added more cars.
Well, that's good.
It's amazing.
Good for us.
It's amazing that we have that resource here in this community, and we're so grateful because every year since he's been open, he's kindly invited us to come back. It's really become the event. You don't have to be present to win. We broadcast it, Facebook Live and all that. But if you're in town, don't miss it. We had like almost 3,000 people out there last year. So much fun. We call it a great night at the museum, and somebody goes home with a new car.
Yeah, he has so many cars, he's got to stack them in
Yeah,
there.
we were talking about that. They've invited us back to film some promo stuff later in this month. And each year when we go back, we notice that the cars are a little closer together, and then he's buying more double stacks because he's going to either have to build another building the same size or something.
Right. And it's impressive. It's a beautiful collection.
I love following it on Facebook. He's got a great page there because they're always like taking a car out and highlighting it, and they tell the whole history behind the car. And that's the point too. The cars aren't just there because they're cool cars. Every car Mark has there has a story behind it, you know. And you go in there and there's a car. It's got 8 miles on it. That's all that they ever, had on it. And there's a car from like 1973. It's amazing.
Right.
So you got to get your tickets, Bill. You've got them at your office.
Right.
We've got them at our office, Helping Seniors, which is 1344 South Apollo Drive. We tell everybody we're in that beautiful Omni professional tower right there on Apollo. It's on Apollo, and it's very close. We call it like on the medical campus, very close to the hospital there, Suite 2C. And so you can get tickets there. You can get them at any of the AJ Hires, Boniface Hires car dealerships. You can also get them by calling Nancy, 321-473-7770, or at helpingseniors.carraffle.com. But be in it to win it. It's a great time. It's going to be a lot of fun, Bill, once again this year.
Very good.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill Johnson, board-certified elder law attorney with the law office, William A. Johnson, PA. Great conversation, and thank you for being here with us today on Helping Seniors Radio. We'll see you next week.